Happy holidays, Gay Milwaukee! And today we have a very special guest, civil rights activist and friend and colleague of mine, Solana. How are you?
Hi.
I see you're recovering with your leg. How's that going?
I've been still in physical therapy. For people who don't know, I was on a scooter and hit a divot in the road or whatever and broke my tibia in a couple places, so I'm still recovering.
How long did that take you out of commission?
It took me like a couple of months, and I probably was still recovering, but I ended up getting back into it because I found stuff I needed to volunteer for and everything. So I was walking around on a scooter. I was like rolling around this office on a walker and stuff. But yeah, so I was still in physical therapy and everything like that. But it's healing. It's different.
You just didn't let it stop you, hey?
No, I mean for like a week or two, and then it was like, oh, I still got stuff to do, so I kept going just digitally and stuff.
I feel like every time I see you and Chris, you guys are always doing stuff for the community, whether it's like civil rights or political work, or you just keep on going, don't you? How do you stay so motivated?
I think because you don't have a choice. Like, you feel like you don't have a choice once you start studying and figuring out what is going on in the community. But I like helping people, and I like making sure that other people are educated on issues. And I realized that I knew some stuff that not everyone knew. And I grew up in a way that I was very aware of what was going on politically and locally and about myself and my identity. But that's not everyone has that. So I really wanted to provide those spaces for people.
Yeah, and with that, you've tackled women's issues, people of color's issues, LGBT issues, and like we said, the politics. How did you just know you were going to tackle all of these different things at once?
Well, like at first it was about just like engineers, or I was just about UWM people, or just about students, and then it was like, and then I was about everybody that was people of color, and then and I just kind of realized what was my focus and what I loved to do, and where my passion was lying, and I started just slimming it down, but I work on everything, but still have a focus. So my focus is the most oppressed people and parts of my identity and who really needs the support because of historical issues.
How is that in the Milwaukee playing field? Because it's different everywhere, but
yeah.
Milwaukee's
behind. It's interesting because you have not every skin folk is kinfolk. But also people just don't, like I said, like I had a knowledge that I knew about myself, or I knew what's going on, and I knew about the oppression that's going on, or the history of the oppression, and not everybody does. So you can have a lot of people that are in positions of power, but that doesn't mean that they completely get what they should be doing for the community. And that doesn't even matter if they're melanated or not. Like, we have poverty at high levels in Milwaukee. We are one of the worst places for Black people, and that means that we're one of the worst places for LGBT Black people. So what are you doing to correct that situation? And if you're not really doing anything about it, then, I mean, what are you doing in positions of leadership?
Do you feel that you said for people of color that has its hurdles and just challenges, and you said with LGBT people of color that has their challenges, do you feel add another layer to it with women on top of that, that's even more that comes along with that?
Yeah, intersectionality, well, I don't even like to say intersectionality anymore, but it's an easier way of saying it. The intersectionality of the identities makes it that you have to figure out how to go around things and do things differently, and how to present yourself in a room differently, all that kind of stuff, and figure out how, I don't know how to say it, like, you have to figure it out differently. It's always a challenge when you're presenting femininely and identify as such and be in this world, and then also be LGBT or also be Black or have some kind of melanin whatsoever. If you're non-white, then it's always going to be something, you know. Obviously, you know, lighter you are and closer you are to what whiteness is, then it can be easier for you, but it's always going to be a challenge. And so it's about being that leader in the community and making sure that, you know, it's less of a challenge for people, especially if and on top of that, having putting income in there, putting wealth in there. If you don't have lack of wealth, then that's a whole nother level of barriers for you.
I think there can be times where it feels, if you are one of the not as represented groups, it can feel like you revolve around the main represented group at times. Tell me, from those experiences that you just talked about, what are the things not everyone necessarily sees? And it's not out of like any bad will, like homophobia or racism or sexism. It's just sometimes there's an ignorance that comes along. We just don't know any better. What are some stuff, whether it's men for women's issues, straight people for queer issues, or even Caucasian people with people of color, not seeing things all the way? What are the things sometimes are overlooked or missed?
Everyone has their own world that they grew up in, and so not every Black person has the same life as another Black person, and not every queer person has the same life as another queer person. It's all in a spectrum, and I think you have to look at it as such, because we know that there's empathy sometimes, for most part, between two white men, right? They can say, oh yeah, I know that you probably had a different life than me, and I'm just going to they're going to automatically sympathize. But I think there's some kind of wall or barrier that comes up sometimes, and people either assume that they know what people of color go through, or queer people, or anybody that's part of the oppressed identities, but they don't. And even if you are part of the oppressed identity yourself, you don't necessarily know what that other person has gone through. And so I think you have to really empathize and really step back and think about it.
Well, to build off that too, and I think there's a common thread. I don't think they're the same struggles, but I think women, people of color, and queer people have this thread in common, where we felt these type of oppressions in different ways. And they're not the same. And I know that in politics right now, Pete Buttigieg is getting dragged because he says people are saying the queer struggle and the African American struggle are not the same. So I'm not trying to say they're the same thing. But I think there is a common thread that you can see certain aspects that are similar.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always certain aspects, certain situations that some people can go through, but I always am like there's places where trans people can still get fired, right? Yeah. And technically, you cannot get fired for being Black, but it still happens. Yeah. So there is a level of there's certain things that are going on that one group isn't experiencing, but we should all be trying to make sure that it's not happening to anyone. It doesn't matter, because on top of that, you're probably most likely the Black trans person is going to more likely get fired than the white trans person. So then we're still going to a thing of race and class and everything. So I think we really just need to be coming together, and it sounds like so. I don't know, something everybody says, but it really has to be like, if you're about one of the oppressions, then you should be about all. If you're about LGBT rights, then you're about women's rights, Black people's rights, all Latinx rights. You're about everything, because how can you be there's LGBT people in all the different ethnicities.
Can we build off that too? Because I like that idea of, you said that everyone's got to stand for everybody, because I feel I'm obviously a guy, so I listen to other women, particularly trans women and Black women, that feel like feminism doesn't always cover them or blanket them or support them. What do you make of that?
I mean, yeah, I think there's a difference between white feminism for sure, but what feminism is supposed to be. Feminism is supposed to be that everyone is equal, but what happens is that people will say they're feminine and then perpetuate what they think feminism is on other people in other groups, and that's where it can get kind of weird, because you're saying what feminism means, you should also think that.
So coming full picture with this, sometimes it can feel that not all of our rights are brought to us in the way, and it can be very challenging even for all women to support feminism, or even when it comes to the bigger picture of all of us need to kind of stand together for every type of issue. Do you feel that's sometimes a challenge? So sometimes it's hard for us to even get down, all women have to be represented equal, let alone we have to stand up for all these other issues too at the same time. Do you think that kind of trickles over to politics, and why the big picture kind of seems sometimes divisive?
If someone is representing the community, if they get elected to represent the community, they should be studying all the areas, all the different types of identities in that district. And I think that's our biggest problem. People will represent who they want to represent when they're in the legislature. So they'll vote a certain way for the little bit of people that might donate for them, or they say, well, these are the people who vote for me for that's it, or these are only people who reached out to me. But if you have a low income area who might not have the technology to reach out to you, then you should be going there and making sure you hear their voices and making sure you know what's going on. And that doesn't happen. And so then people vote a certain way that is not representing of everybody they're supposed to represent. So that's the one thing. I said this many times is that you should be a real leader, and you should really be trying to reach out and making sure you represent everyone and study and make sure you're the best leader you can be, not just come from wherever you came from and then run for office, get in, and then sit there with the same ideology that you had when you started. You should always be learning and growing if you're a real leader. That's one thing. And you have to know your biases. A lot of people don't know their biases, make decisions based on their biases, and screw up the nation and oppress people, and they're continuing to oppress people because they don't understand their own biases or the history of the country. So that's one thing that's major. So I think that ties into everything when it comes to LGBT rights, women's rights, feminism and all that kind of stuff, is that if you're not actually representing your communities that you're supposed to in the government, then you're going to continue to repeat history. That's the baseline of it. When it comes to it, we have to vote for people that are going to represent our area better. Okay. We have to vote out who we think is not good, and we have to vote in people we know are going to push issues and are going to help our community.
Let me ask something, because I've heard this a lot of the times, particularly from mostly the Black community or the younger generation, that it can be sometimes very overwhelming to figure out who to pick out. What do you recommend for people that just feel a little overwhelmed but don't know who to choose? How do they choose a politician or a person to vote for in the political field? Because it can be a lot sometimes.
What are the issues that are closest to you? And then what are the issues that probably mean the closest to people around you and your community, right? And seeing how has people worked towards that? There's a lot of people in the presidential, there's a lot of people in the mayors right now, and a mayor of Milwaukee, and looking at it, you can say, okay, what have they done in the past to help the community? What are they doing currently? And what are they saying they're going to do? But you don't just look at what they say they're going to do, because that can be proposals just to get your vote. So you got to look at the whole picture, and you got to do your research. But also, after you vote them in, keep them accountable and vote them out if they're not doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, there's a lot more. I feel like in our lifetime, we've been seeing this upsurge of visibility for people of color, queer people, women, and it's just exciting times, hey?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so I'm really loving what's going on right now. Right now, I'm helping out on a campaign for Lena Taylor for mayor, and if she gets in, she'll be the first Black woman to be mayor. And I think we only had one other Black mayor, that was Marvin Pratt for a short time. So other than that, she will be historic, just getting through the primaries, and if she wins, it will be super historic. And I'm happy to be on her campaign because I've seen her in the community for years now, and I know she does good work, and I know she has Milwaukee's best interest at heart, and I know she's going to work really hard to make sure that we get away from being like the worst place for Black people. And
being segregation stigma.
The segregation stigma and the high poverty that we have here in Milwaukee. Like, she's worked in the community and seen all that, and she knows that it's something that really needs to change. And all the stuff I've been doing for Milwaukee, I think that this is a systematic change that I'm really happy to be a part of.
Please don't stop doing what you're doing. You are so amazing to always be tackling this and being an advocate for so many people that need it. Come back anytime. Anytime.
I'll do a longer thing where we just talk about everything.
Everything. We'll talk about everything. Yeah. Thanks for being with us.
I want to.
Yeah, love you. All right. We're at Game Milwaukee. We're signing out. And if you have a story to tell, send us a message. Happy holidays.